In 2018, ransomware advanced significantly and is now capable of taking out infrastructure and operations across the globe. As a result, many organizations are bogged down in reactive work and often overlook the value of crucial information. In Domain Tools' Threat Intelligence Report, learn how to uncover some of the most critical insights from your organization's alerts and indicators that will allow you to shift to a more proactive posture. To download this white paper, please visit securityweekly.com/domain tools. Let the team at Black Hills Information Security test your defenses. With over 10 years of experience in penetration testing, red teaming, and threat hunting, the testers at Black Hills will help you find the holes in your security before the bad guys do. The team at Black Hills cares about educating and sharing their knowledge by creating countless blogs, open source tools, and webcasts for you to learn more about the tradecraft of pen testing and red teaming. Visit securityweekly.com/BHIS to join their mailing list and view the latest blogs and webcasts from Black Hills Information Security. Recorded Future. They help security teams make more confident decisions faster. Recorded Future's technology automates broad collection and analysis of cyber threat data and delivers the rich external context you need to understand alerts and emerging threats. With real-time threat intelligence from Recorded Future, security teams respond to threats 63% faster and find undetected threats 10 times quicker. To get started, go to recordedfuture.com/securityweekly and sign up for the Recorded Future Cyber Daily. Every day, you'll receive an email with the top results for trending technical indicators, cyber news, exploited vulnerabilities, suspicious IP addresses, and more. Subscribe today and stay ahead of cyber attacks.
Hooey! Security Weekly is returning to Las Vegas, sunny Las Vegas, this August for Black Hat and DEF CON, if you hadn't guessed. And if you would like to request a briefing or to sponsor an interview on site at Black Hat, please go to securityweekly.com/booking and submit your request. Security Weekly will also be at Hacker Halton in Atlanta, Georgia this October 10th through 11th. EC Council is offering our listeners a 15% discount to sit for any of their boot camp courses or workshops. Visit securityweekly.com/hackerhalted to register now. And now, actually, Patrick's going to tell us about you're going to give us another conference.
I am. So, yeah, we have this really great conference coming up. The second year, it's going to be the Layer 8 conference, which completely focuses on social engineering and OSINT, happening in about 2 weeks, June 8th, at the Rhode Island Convention Center. So much awesomeness going on, tracks of talks. We got the mental health hackers there. We got a lockpick village. We have a OSINT capture the flag. But also, one of the best things about this, you get to meet Paul Asadorian. You get to meet Sam. You get to meet Johnny. You get to meet. They're all going to be there.
Yeah.
So if you go there, you'll get to meet them.
That's what they keep telling me.
That's part of the awesomeness for the whole thing. So I hope people kind of come by and check it out. So check out layer8conference.com.
Well, there you go. Thank you, Patrick.
I went last year.
And I'd be there if I could. I really would.
You'll be there in spirit, Jeff.
I will.
Yeah.
Totally will.
We've got Matt.
Matt was there last year.
Matt was there last year.
It was quite good.
It was a lot of fun last year. And we're going even bigger and better this year with more stuff.
Wow.
We moved all the way to the Rhode Island Convention Center in Providence.
Ooh,
yeah, good
fancy.
Stuff. Huge.
Uptown.
Well,
do you know what? That's a short flight for me. Maybe I should actually.
Yeah.
I think you should, Jeff.
It's a direct flight. You can just
we have
jump
Southwest.
Right
Come right into the
Southwest.
Say, what were those conference dates again?
It is June 8th. Saturday, June 8th.
Oh, man, I'm working that week. I'm sorry. I won't be there, but I'll be there in spirit.
But this is a weekend, so you work during the week and you pop up for the conference.
Yeah, but I have a Saturday overlap, unfortunately. So
that sucks.
Well, that's the
Sorry,
way.
Jeff. I've never even been invited. So.
No job.
Jeff, you're always invited.
Jeff, that whole 500 feet away thing. Yeah, we won't get into that. We've got Jeff in the state of Baltimore.
I am in the state of Baltimore.
It
home for a weekend, and then off to Circle CityCon in 2 weekends. And the weekend of Layer 8, I will be in New York City for HushCon.
HushCon in New York City.
By the way,
I'm not allowed to put that out on social media.
I understand.
Did I tell you, Jeff, I'm going to be in the state of Baltimore the first week of June?
You did not. We must get together.
We should do that. Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm teaching in a special secretive location, and I'm teaching special secretive people.
I live very, very near said secretive location.
It's secretive, but you just said it's Baltimore.
Yeah, I know, right?
Well, that doesn't really narrow it down.
Baltimore's the airport.
That's the state. The city's still yet to be determined.
That's right.
And Lee is in Idaho. And
Idaho? What?
Idaho.
Idaho.
Oh, okay.
Idaho.
Good job, Lee.
Idaho. I mean, Idaho.
The state of Idaho, which is also a state. Yeah. We're getting all our states down this week so that we can have them straight in the future, just so we don't ever have these kind of confusions. But all right, so we're going to do the news, right? Yeah. We got
good.
news stories. Some news happened this week. My first story from the news was about the Windows 10 exploit. There was a 0-day that was released very recently from Windows 10, and this involves a task manager. So by sending in malformed tasks, you could cause this to crash on CVE 2019-0841. It has been patched, and it always leads us to the why don't we patch more conversation, but people don't. And we did test this exploit actually at FM Global Cyber Lab, and Scott Bartlett did those tests this afternoon, and we were actually successfully able to reproduce said exploit to our heart's content and have a working model of it. So thank you, Scott, for putting that together on very short notice so that I could talk about it a little bit. And anybody have any comments about the Windows 0 day? Crickets?
Crickets.
Yeah. Oh, well. You know.
Blah, blah. Another week, another 0.
Another week, another 0 day.
You know, I like those kind of things. I was running I'll have some comments. I was doing a pen test a couple of weeks ago, and I think Google had some proof of concept code on yet another near 0 day. It was not yet patched on the system that I was on, so I totally used that, right? So the idea that I could, in this particular case, try to write over system files with a regular user was an attractive idea to me. Go figure.
Yeah.
Hey, I got a question for you, Joff.
Yeah.
What percentage roughly of your successful exploitations are dependent on, let's say, relatively recent, within 30 days, 0-day releases like we've just described?
I would say probably less than 1%.
Interesting.
And Joff, I have a question for you as well. So every time one of these 0 days kind of come out, it seems like pen testers get all excited. It's like, yeah, there's something new that I can use in my job as a pen tester. Is that fair? Because the way I'm looking at it is our job as pen testers is really to find vulnerabilities that should be fixed, I think. If they have not really had the opportunity to fix it, is that really fair to say, oh, I got system access on your machines through a 0 day? What do you think about that?
If you want to go off the rails, I don't even think a pen test should be about finding vulnerabilities. Go, Josh.
We can get back to that.
So I'm actually largely in agreement. I think a tremendous amount of pen testing is really about exploiting misconfiguration.
Yep.
And vulnerabilities tend to be, at least for me, fairly low on the list. It's after I have exhausted the list of misconfiguration items that are on my to-do list, and when I'm getting, frankly, more desperate, right? I'm going to go down to the vulnerability level and say, okay, what can I do here that's going to get me in? And I think that's reflective of the change in defense strategies that has occurred over a number of years. And you know, the change in defense strategies is to put a lot of firewalls up. There's less exposed directly to the internet, so therefore there is less impetus and less motivation to exploit stuff that is directly network services from a remote code execution perspective. It doesn't mean that stuff doesn't exist. It certainly exists, but sometimes there's just lower hanging fruit in terms of either exploiting users or exploiting misconfiguration associated with the environment that's going to get you further.
Well, that's a scalability problem too. I don't have Joff's experience at this, but when I was doing these things, we were always looking for that big fat bottom part of the pyramid, because most of the companies were not that worried about trying to dig into the level that I know some people could dig in and get to these really elaborate zero-day exploits. They had so many other problems to deal with. It kind of turns back into that law enforcement smoking gun and forensics problem. How many person hours do you have to dedicate to this stuff? So why not get rid of the really bad things that are really obvious and really out there first, because there were plenty of them. And
Exactly.
I never had a client who came to me and said, we've eliminated so many things. We need to get Joff or somebody to come in and dig into these incredibly minute esoterica to see if we've got those holes too. Right. They were real worried about the fact that they had, our login turned on. They weren't so worried about the fact that there's some elaborate zero-day exploit that affects 0.001% of all systems in the world. But
I think that lines up, right, Doug? I mean, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree with you.
More of what we do is about environmental misconfiguration than it is about direct software vulnerabilities. And I think it's also reflective of the fact that operating system technology has matured significantly. So if you look at operating system services, the old idea of exploiting a Stack Overflow, for example, that's pretty much gone by the wayside if people have compiled things correctly. I mean, occasionally you'll find that kind of thing, but it's really not that common, right? So exploitation with quote-unquote 0 days against well-secured environments is a much more challenging thing. Now, I will tell you that after I've exhausted my list of misconfiguration, I'll go search for vulnerabilities that I might be able to exploit on a local system to potentially get local privilege escalation and take things further. But that is assuming that my customer at hand has configured things really, really well. Lots of defense, lots of appropriate risk mitigation, and particularly mitigating risk with privilege, and forcing me into that position, right?
Right.
But all too often, misconfiguration is going to get me there before I even have to go to that spot, right?
I completely. I mean, Matt, as we were talking earlier in your segment about the fact that I was able to just sit down and change screens. That wasn't an elaborate Uber hack. It was the fact that they didn't have any security at all, and it was all root. I didn't have to privilege escalate. I just sat down and went, think, and I'm in. And it's 2 keystrokes, and I've got you.
Yeah, you got to go for the weakest link.
Absolutely. And I mean when I did audits, the first place we started was just surveying. I mean, that's that physical layer. If I could walk into your damn server room and sit down at a console that was logged in as root, I don't have to do anything fancy. And until you fix all that, I don't even want Joff looking at that stuff until we fixed all that first, and then we'll worry. If I got spare time left on my account, I'll say, okay, let's go see what else we can find. I agree. I think everybody's right on point with that.
And to follow up that's what we see with our more mature customers. They're like, okay, you got us with all that misconfiguration stuff first, maybe second time. Now we're going to come back and we're going to be with our gold image. Everything's done very, very well. Now let's see what you can do, right? So they're going to make us work harder. And there's no problem with that. I don't have a problem working really hard. But when I'm working really hard and I'm going for, in one particular case, 3 weeks ago, I'm going for a driver vulnerability that allows me to overwrite a system file, and I have to really, really work hard to see if I can overwrite a DLL to get me some local escalation. We're at a whole different level, right? When we get there. I'm glad they do that, because raising the bar is what it's all about, right? Yep. Raising that bar is about mitigating the risk. It's about lowering the ability for just the average script kiddie to actually enter the environment, and that's healthy, right? It's really a positive outcome of what we do. So,
and I wish we were there. I wish we were at the point where all I was really worrying about was really sophisticated esoterica, and I wasn't worrying about low-hanging fruit and script kiddies, because there's more of those than anything else, but we're not there. I mean, we're not even close to being there.
Well, in some cases we are. I think Black Hill's a little spoiled because we've got a lot of returning customers that the level of sophistication is frankly going up, and making us really have to work for a living, which, I love. In fact, when I get a customer, when I sort of get a level of exploitation I can do in an afternoon, I'm almost disappointed. I'm like, oh man, no, we're going back to this.
It's not a challenge.
It's not a challenge.
Yeah.
But on the same token, there are customers when I get, I'm 5 days in and I've been pounding my head against the monitor and I'm just not getting there. And that's a real challenge. And I start feeling down about that. I probably shouldn't.
Yeah, you should feel up.
Yeah, I tend to step away after a while and I think about it and I call the customer. I'm like, you guys are giving me a real hard time and I'm reasonably good at what I do. So kudos, right?
But at the same time, let's drill down from there. The people that can't afford to hire Black Hills. So like the city of Baltimore has now been ransomwared since the 7th of May.
For the second time.
For the second time. They got ransomware before. It's a different group.
Well, maybe.
Maybe, yeah. But they said it was a different group. But, yeah, who knows what they said. But, I mean, I'm like, come on, guys.
Right.
You don't have backups? Like, really? I mean, they're ransomware again. They've been down since the 7th of May. And it's not just like one computer sitting in somebody's room. It's like we can't pay parking fines.
Well, Doug, this one hits close to home.
I know.
Literally.
In the state.
Because I'm from the state of Baltimore. I'm glad you brought up backups, and I've been hearing reporting on the local news and the local NPR station when I'm driving into my client, and I keep thinking nobody's talking about backups. They keep talking about the cyber fix is coming slow and cyber this and cyber that. I'm like, it's not even a security thing. That's basic IT practices. Where are the backups?
Yep.
Yeah, if everything's locked up and then you have a backup, it's like just roll back and say, see ya.
And I mean,
I'm not paying you.
But you know what? Every time I get a call about ransomware, I get a call and they go, hi.
Just revert.
So, I don't know what this thing means. Do you think this is ransomware? And I'm like, yeah, that's ransomware. Because they're going, it says WannaCry. I'm like, yeah, that's ransomware. And I'm like, and they're, what do we do? And like, should we pay them? And I'm like, no, look, just wipe it and restore from your backups and then guess what the next thing is.
Yeah, we don't have backups.
Oh, yeah. We went to our backup repository, which is like a cardboard box under Jerry's desk. And the
From
last time that was old Lou backed those up back in
Old
Lou back in 2001
with his wrench.
Old Lou is unreliable.
Yeah, old Lou needs to be put out to pasture.
Old Lou was,
and he was.
Pasture.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
But I mean, yeah. So look, folks, this is just. You got to have reliable backups. You have to test that strategy. You have to make sure it works. If you're not doing that, you're going to get hit with this. I mean, it's not when or if. You are going to probably get ransomware someday. They're going to get sophisticated enough. And I don't care how many elaborate esoteric exploits you have blocked. Yep. Somebody will phish you, somebody will spearfish you, and some idiot will click. I'm sorry, not idiot. Some person who just didn't think, and we've all been there, will double click that link and go, boom, I just turned this thing loose on the company. And if you don't have the backups, you're done. Now you're trying to trust that some person in another country will give you will give you a key for Bitcoin, right?
No.
Yeah. So. Yeah, that's how that turned out. So and Atlanta got hit not too long ago too with the same kind of thing.
I'm surprised this doesn't happen more often.
It does. You just don't hear about it, I think.
Yep.
I mean, I get those calls where they're going, hi, I heard you speak at the X State Bar Association in 2005, and I just had a question.
What does this mean?
What does it mean when your screen turns red?
What's Bitcoin?
And it says Bitcoin needs to be sent. Yeah, and you're like, yeah, you got ransomware. I think it's happening a lot more than anybody even thinks.
I mean, you see that with hospitals. You get hit once, okay, but you get hit twice.
Yeah. I know.
But with hospitals,
we're not hearing it because the organizations get hit by it. They just quietly pay the ransom and move on.
Absolutely.
And hope they get paid back. I've had a couple of those too where they were like, what happens if you pay them and they don't give you the key and they just say they want you to pay even more?
Yep. You're
like,
screwed.
Well, I guess you could pay them more and they won't give you the key then either.
Because they might not even have the key.
Well, yeah, it's just that's the best ransomware of all, right?
No, you got to pay us a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I thought the thing, though, with hospitals, though, is a lot of times they're on, like, such outdated stuff, and they're like, we can't update that because it's required software, and people are living on that kind of thing. So we're still on XP.
Well, a lot of times it's just
doesn't mean you can't back up.
Yeah, a lot of times it's just flat, unsegmented network, so it just spreads like wildfire.
Yep.
Yeah, I get those. I saw those spread like crazy. Same thing, unsegmented, running off a hub from like 1997, and you're like, wow, this is an interesting device. Has it got tubes in it? And
So for those people that are fathers in the room, Have you ever had the experience where you're walking your daughter in for surgery and you look over into the other room she's about to enter, and they're running Windows XP on the surgical instrument and surfing Facebook at the same time?
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
I've had that experience.
Confidence.
No, but when I was in the delivery room with my daughter, similar to Doug's experience, only I didn't do anything other than just look at the screen and saw everybody that was, on the docket on the floor for that day in a big spreadsheet, and I could click through and look at everything.
Yeah, that's my favorite when you're sitting in your doctor's office and the patient before you's record is still up.
Right.
And you're like, when I leave, is my record still going to be up?
Yeah.
I'd prefer if that didn't happen.
I want the one
Pretty
that's going to
much.
hit. It's going to hit IoT stuff, and all the drones are going to take off and come over and
Yep.
go, okay, pay now. Like, you pay now.
Well,
Yep.
Hey,
And then-
did we have a story that we got to talk about? I'm just wondering.
We are. We're talking about Baltimore
those Chinese
ransomware.
Talking
made
about
drones are going to
Baltimore
steal that
ransomware.
data.
Oh, I totally lost track.
Oh, yeah,
No, we were talking about all those. And we
I
have-
actually have a question, though, just to be fair. Is it possible for all the people that were network admins or sysadmins, is it possible that the ransomware has hit the backup systems? Or is it more likely they just didn't have backups?
Depends.
Well, so I've had that, and not me personally, but I had a client, or I didn't take the job. But yeah, sometimes if people are doing what I call pull backups, where they actually pull the backups out and it's running in real time, and so every night at 3 a.m. their backups run and they back up everything. Yeah, the ransomware went onto the backup files, so when they restored the ransomware, just started up again. And then I said, do you have out-of-band backups? And they immediately said, what the hell does that mean? And I was like, oh, yeah, you're screwed.
Can you get backups from the day before?
Well, you can if you. It depends. Yeah, and if they have them, but a lot of times, like small companies, they have their backup tape in there or whatever it is,
Right.
and they put it in.
Just
It
overwrite
just
it
is the
every
same
day.
tape.
That's
They
it.
override it every night. It's like old
Right.
security
Yeah,
cam
that's what I
footage.
do with Saturday Night Live. Just
Yeah.
every week.
Absolutely.
It's like let me acquaint you with the safety feature, singular.
yeah.
They don't have multiple tapes or incremental backups or whatever
Right.
to go backwards to.
or off-site or
and
anything
it's
else.
pretty easy to do now.
It is, and with the cloud, but some of this ransomware will jump onto cloud drives, and I saw that as well.
Oh, yeah.
Where they were putting their backups off onto a OneDrive file or a Google Drive file, and the same thing. It went looking for the extensions that were there, and boom, you nailed it, and it's all gone. So if you don't have out of band, you don't have some kind of off-site backup, you better get some, because you're going to get hit with this stuff eventually. Somebody will click the link. I promise that somebody will get spearphished in your organization.
This is where final thought, and it's been 2 hours, and I haven't brought it up, but this is where PCI would come in handy.
Oh, Jesus, he said it.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bottoms up.
Because PCI requires retention
He
at least
said
of
PCI.
logs
Yep.
for 1 year. It doesn't actually specify how long you keep regular system backups, other than you're supposed to keep them secured and separate.
And just be sure that in that same context, I completely agree, but be sure that in that you understand your business cycle. How far back can you go? If you only make that one offsite backup once a year and you get nailed on December 15th, can you really rebuild your whole system all the way back to December 30th or 31st from the year before? That you got to think about. So as you build that and you do your PCI and all this, be sure that you think about all those different pieces of that continuity, because if you don't, you're going to get popped.
Well, so PCI requires for at least event logs for them to be pulled, immediately to a centralized log server. So in theory, you're good there. But again, it's not prescriptive in terms of system backups, although, I mean, for all the companies that I've been to over the years, most of them do incrementals daily, and it's like a full backup, usually once a week.
But also, Jeff, if you're actually real PCI certified, shouldn't the PCI network be completely separate from the other networks, so they shouldn't both get hit by the ransomware?
That's a great question. First of all, there's no
God,
such
now
thing
you
as
started.
PCI certification. It's PCI compliance.
Thank you.
You're complying to a security standard. And segmentation, although recommended, is not a requirement.
So that means nobody does it.
No, it means they do it because it means to them, what if we segment the network, we don't have to do security all those other places? Cool. That's literally how they're interpreting it.
That's not one of those requirements when the auditor comes in to ensure those networks are separate?
Oh, you said another dirty word. There's no such thing as audit when it comes to PCI. It's an assessment. The assessment.
All right,
It's drink. It's not a requirement.
Bottoms up.
It's not a requirement to segment your network. It's recommended. It's certainly it's certainly better than having a flat network, but it is still to this day not a requirement. But most people have latched on and do it again, not because it makes them more secure, but it's because we don't have to do security or all this silly stuff like backups or logging or patching on all the other systems that you're not going to look at. You, the assessor that's come in to look at it.
And that's the other piece of this. Get your patching stuff up to code. I mean, a lot of people I've seen got hit with WannaCry and some of the other. They didn't patch. The patch was there. They just hadn't run it. And they're like, oh, it takes us 6 months to get a patch, analyzed.
They break stuff.
Right. And I'm like, guys, really? I mean, like, you need to start prioritizing your patches and going, this one's critical. We got to do it today. This one, we'll test it later and worry about it. But I mean, come on. And I mean, there was another story in here about the Linksys routers leaking information. The patch was from 2014. The firmware was from 2014. They patched it. It's still out there. People are getting hit with it. It was leaking information, and it was the same exact problem. It was just not keeping up. And I know it's tough. I really do. Believe me, I've been there. And I know it's tough, and you got 9,000 fires going, and you got to try to put them all out. And it's just like, oh yeah, and I'll get to that backup patching stuff tomorrow. And but it's just, you're going to get killed on this.
I mean, I still wonder, home router from 5 years ago. Yeah, it's your home router, but they're so dang cheap at that level. Why not just forklift in a new one? Come on. That actually does its own updates.
Well, I will tell you about that is that a lot of people don't have the expertise to do that, especially with Soho stuff. So when you get down and you say, yeah, I'll do it, and I can buy a new cheap router, but a lot of people are like, oh, I have to hire somebody to come in and do that for them. So like, when my dad wants a new router, he has to call me, and I fly down there and I put him a new router in. And he can't do it himself. And there's a lot of companies even in that same ballpark. There's also small companies that are in this horrible nightmare of, we can't do anything because we have an agreement with this outside party to do those things, and we can't just do it ourselves. We have to save up, and then that company charges them $50,000 to come in and upgrade that Linksys router to the latest model for $39.
And actually, the funny thing is, as you're saying that, I'm remembering a story. I had a friend of ours that called a month ago because they were having trouble because the Wi-Fi wouldn't reach the access point for their hot tub, so they couldn't run it on their phones. And they asked me for a Wi-Fi extender recommendation. I gave them one. Then I heard from my wife a week ago that they hadn't deployed it because they couldn't figure out how. And they haven't asked me for
I
help.
thought you were going to say they electrocuted themselves.
Well, I'm not completely down with controlling your hot tub temperature and jets from your phone. I mean, what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, no. But it's fun. Well, you're gonna have your phone in the hot tub anyway. Who's gonna be in the hot tub? I mean, we had the guy with the ski slope out there. Like, how could you be in the hot tub without a phone? What would you do there?
Have you ever read the writings of Amistad Moffman? About Marin County and the peacock feathers and the hot tubs
No, I must have missed that one.
I'm just too old.
I'll watch the Netflix series when it comes out.
Look, here's the deal. Hot tub and phone, it's not a good mix. It's going to shorten your phone's life.
You
right?
think that's
they
gonna
have fun at the same time?
Is that going to put a damper on our new show that's called Paul's Celebrity Hot Tub?
Yeah, that's going to mess up the whole new show.
Paul and Larry doing the show from the
Paul
hot
and
tub.
Larry's Celebrity Hot Tub.
That's nothing you want to see.
Get you in the hot tub. Going to get you wet.
We still get that 50-gallon drum of.
Yeah, okay. No, you need that too. But hey, what are you going to do? You got to get the waterproof kind for that. So
Hey, let's move on to another story.
Moving right on. Okay,
I've got one.
Oh, okay. Well, go ahead then.
It broke just an hour or two before we went on the air, but Julian Assange has officially been indicted. 17 counts under the Espionage Act. Go.
Ouch.
Indicted in which
No,
country?
wait.
U.S.
In the United States.
In the U.S.
Okay. Yeah, just checking. I, as the token Australian on the show, about time. honestly, I don't support what Julian has done. I think it's damaging to the Western world and the Five Eyes community, and he needs to be brought to justice, in my opinion. So I don't have a problem.
I agree. I'm with you, Joff. I don't approve of such things, and I love a good act of piracy as much as the next person, but you can only go so far before I think you're actually damaging lots of people with what you're doing, and I don't approve.
So I was sort of talking about him over the weekend with someone at NOLACon in New Orleans, and they asked what I thought was an interesting question that I didn't have a good answer for, so I'll put it forward to our esteemed group. What about Chelsea Manning?
Tougher case.
Yeah.
I don't know that I want to offer an opinion on that one. I think that's a much more difficult, less overt issue that it's much more nuanced in so many ways. It's hard to pass judgment on that one.
We'll get 3 hours of college credit in ethics if we have that discussion. But I mean, that's a really complicated question, Jeff. And I agree with you. It's a good question, but it's.
It was okay that I didn't answer it because I didn't have a good answer.
I completely agree. I don't think any of us have a good answer to that.
But isn't part of the difference here that Assange is trying to claim that he's a journalist, so he should have the First Amendment protections, whereas both Snowden and Chelsea Manning's not claiming to be a journalist for First Amendment protections.
Yeah, it's where it gets into that ethics 2001 class.
Well, so first of all, does First Amendment U.S. protections extend to non-citizens? Because Assange is not a citizen of the United States.
Well, that's why it's espionage.
He's a citizen of Australia, as am I for that matter. But I'm a citizen of the United States as well. First Amendment protections do indeed extend to me.
Yep.
But not in the case of Julian Assange. So he's not a U.S. person. He's not a permanent resident. He's not a citizen, and therefore. That principle I don't think can be applied.
Well, that's why he's saying journalist, because if he says journalist, I think then he gets around that little problem, which is a
does he though?
Because
Because that's what Joff is asking.
No, I don't think he does.
Right, because Joff is saying that even if he's a journalist, he's a foreign journalist. So does the U.S. Constitution apply to non-Americans?
Yikes.
No, the U.S. Constitution does not apply to non-Americans. I mean, absolutely.
Even journalists?
Exactly. Right.
He's
and Joff knows because he actually had to take a citizenship.
That's true. Joff knows.
Joff's a better citizen than any of us.
School us, Joff. We don't know anything about this.
I took the test. I took the civics exam. I mean, because that's what it is.
For the love of God, Doug thinks that Baltimore's a state.
I don't. It was a little S. Jeez, I'll never live it down. Yeah, it's like, hey, wait, is ICE knocking at the door? Yeah, it's
yeah, but so on the other hand, does the United States wish to extend its goodwill to others in the form of spreading its constitutional beliefs around the world? I think that is something that we've been doing in the U.S. for some time, and we would like to see it apply elsewhere. But the fact of the matter is, different countries are their own sovereign entities, and these principles, while they may be admired by others, are not followed universally by all countries, and that's the world we live in. If you look at Australia, Australia has its own constitution. Australia. Its parliamentary and government system is built upon what the UK handed down, and I don't know how other Australians feel about what Julian Assange has done, but it's my belief that a good many of patriotic Australians probably feel that Julian has also violated their trust and their patriotism, if you like, in the Australian system as well. So, I don't
shades of gray, I think, is where all that's going to fall.
Lots of shades of gray.
Yeah, and
I'll say this though, we're talking about constitutional protections, and that loosely relates very often to many of the things we talk about, at least in terms of privacy. But I think it's important to point out that at the end of the day, while the Constitution affords us as U.S. citizens tremendous rights and privileges, the bottom line is always the state comes first.
No, that's absolutely true, Jeff. And there's never such thing as limitless privilege and power. I mean, honestly, the state does own us to some extent, no matter where you are. And unfortunately, that's the power we have granted the state as people in this universe. It just so happens that the U.S., unlike many other countries, sees due process of law and holds it high in regard beyond what most other countries on the planet do, and which is what makes us very adversarial in our process and quite hard to understand by many other countries. But on the other hand, it's good for us and it's healthy. And over the years, I've learned to respect that and stand back and watch things happen, because it's important.
Well, in that same light, so as we talk about bad guy foreign nation states, I don't think we can not talk about Huawei a little bit.
Huawei.
That's how you say
That was a nice schwegway.
It was a nice Huawei. It's Hawaii.
It's Hawaii.
Huawei. It's Huawei. But Huawei, there was so many stories this week that everybody was putting up about all the various things, whether it was the initial story of Donald Trump blocking U.S. companies from purchasing products from there, or Google banning them from using the Android platform on all their phones. There was a dozen other stories about different people jumping on the bandwagon, including one today. The United Kingdom is now jumping on the bandwagon and blocking access to that. What do you think about this? I mean, it's a big issue, I think, and it's probably something that needed to be. I've been talking about the issue of purchasing foreign products for top secret stuff for years. Embedding chips in mainframes, embedding chips in fire control computers on ships for years and years and years. I remember talking about this in like 2005 when they were putting chips in tanks and thinking, what if that happened? There was another story about drones actually exfoliating data about you, about the drone's location, where it was flying, what it was seeing, exfoliating that to Huawei. I mean, where are we on this? Should we do it? I mean, is this a good thing that they're banning it, or is everybody like, oh no, it just stops free trade?
No, I love the idea. I will tell you right now, I love the idea that it's been brought up as an issue. Much of the community, that especially on the defense side, without revealing anything specific, have been well aware that the chip level companies have been doing things that are distasteful. In terms of what code is being implemented at that level. And I think it's very, very important that it enters the public awareness, that there are things happening there that shouldn't be happening, and not to just blindly trust and accept the technology that is being implemented by some of these companies. I mean, it needs to be examined. It needs to be looked at. It needs to be considered with all due caution.
I completely agree. I mean, I think this leads back into the IoT problem of people, every device, whether the sprinklers or the thermostat or a fire control system, all those things are now built on platforms that have been manufactured. They don't know where. It's just put together. Right. You buy them all, put them in your organization, put them in your police department, your fire department, wherever. And nobody in those organizations has the capability to assess, evaluate, and determine if these devices are exfoliating data. There's every reason that these foreign manufactured products from hostile foreign powers are exfoliating data. I mean, why wouldn't you do this? It makes perfect sense to me that I would do it. I would be thinking about it. I'm like, I make everything you use. Why would you not exfoliate data? It would be crazy not to. You got the opportunity.
And this goes.
Okay, first of all, I would question if exfoliate is actually a word.
Well,
but,
okay.
Exfiltrating.
Yeah,
It's like stop filleting the fish. All right.
Yeah. It's a state of mind.
public
State
exfoliating
of alcohol consumption.
Yeah. Oh,
like
jeez.
booth. It is a challenge. But no, I think any country is well within its rights to import technology, but also examine that import and trust that what is being imported is indeed secure from the perspective of that country's technical and intelligence community. And so it is absolutely right to examine that issue. It should be examined, and it should be examined at depth, because it is an issue of trust. And we need to have appropriate assurance that the trust relationship is not being violated. So I don't have a problem with it.
But it's so cheap.
Yeah, because
Patrick?
this also goes hand in hand with one of the other stories that Lee had on here was about the drones.
Yeah.
And I've actually been talking to somebody else that comes to my local DEF CON group that's been digging into some of the Chinese-made drones, where he said that he was kind of looking at the communication of the information that's coming out of the drone, and he said it's going to some kind of Tor network.
Right.
So why is it...
Well, that's a surprise.
Right. So are all these Chinese-made or whatever other country drones flying around with GPS coordinates, taking photos of what they're seeing and sending that back?
That's what they were
Exactly.
doing. And one
Wouldn't
company.
you?
So
Well, Doug would.
yeah, exactly.
I mean-
DJI is makes almost every drone that's
Yep.
sold, and that's from Shenzhen, and all that stuff comes. And guess where their products come from? Huawei, and all those products are interrelated. So, yeah.
And if they want to stay in business, they have to play ball with the Chinese government. They have no choice. So they are in fact compelled to do it if they want to stick around and be successful. On the other hand, then what the other piece is that Chinese government subsidizes the hell out of crap so that they can come in at a lower price point and own the market. It's kind of hard for them not to play the game.
And most of those
it sucks.
motherboards and products are made in Vietnam and China. They're made by very small operations, and they're all collected up and consolidated and into a little bigger operation. And then that's all collected up and sold. And as long as they meet the specs, they're there. And the government has absolute control over every bit of that, all the way up and down the supply chain. From the
Look, I think this has been an issue that's been simmering for a long time. I think this is the first administration that's actually taken it on. Oh God, I hate to even say this.
Please don't.
I actually support that they've taken it on. I think this is one of the ones that's important to take on, and I do think.
Have they really taken it on, or is it incidental content?
Yeah, that's the problem.
Well,
let's not give them too much credit.
Yeah, that's right. Let's not give them too much credit. But it could be, if we do this right, there could be something that positive comes out of it, where we have some sort of evaluation criteria that is invoked so that these companies that are producing these things have to jump over some set of criteria in order to successfully be able to import. That's what I would hope would be the outcome, because we need technical evaluation. I mean, that has to happen. You can't just blindly trust. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. So.
No, I completely agree, and I hope that's what comes out of it. I think this specific incident was just a bargaining chip that was being used, which is unfortunate. But I do hope that we see more people starting to evaluate these things, and we start to see maybe some more regulation about that. Lee,
Well, again, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I've been getting a lot of my news this week on NPR because I've had to go into client site, and I was listening. It was probably 2 days ago. They were saying that the initial ban or whatever you call it, they were kind of backing off of it, and they're giving them 90 days. Companies in the U.S. before they have to suspend business with Huawei or whatever it's called.
Hawaii.
Hawaii. So there's some opportunity, at least for U.S. companies, to come up with a game plan or a contingency plan. I'm assuming that's the nature of they backed off slightly.
Well, I think they backed off just because the companies went, what are we going to do? I mean, they're like, are we going to just shut down until we find a new supplier of chips, boards, capacitors, and everything else?
They're like the third biggest phone maker.
Yeah.
So one of the conversations I was in up here is that one of our local companies, Micron, makes a bunch of chips that are also available in China, and with the new rules, they're going to be in a great shape because all of a sudden their market goes up.
Yeah, but can they meet the demand?
In the States.
So at the same time, Lee, there were 2.25 million Russians had their data. So you had a whole bunch of data exposure stories this week. So I want to let Lee have a chance to bring his stories up.
Oh yeah, I did do a couple of. I mean, the some of them were just the same old, like the survey database. They just didn't secure it. It was one of those they're gathering data off of social media and then for whatever the marketing use for it is, and that was yet another open Mongo database kind of thing. I'm thinking, okay, film at 11, but this the details on the Russian, it was a misconfigured site, which was, to me, a little different. It's not somebody picking up somebody's data and not storing it properly. They just didn't do the right work on the core site that was supposed to test it. Of course, if you're exposed in either case, you're not any happier why you're exposed. You're just out there. It was kind of sad and kind of different. We don't hear a lot about Russian data being exposed.
Yeah, they got my data again there, I'm sure. So I was just there. So
who doesn't have a list of exposures as long as our arm in this business?
What do Russians consider private or sensitive data? And that's sort of a tongue-in-cheek question, but the more I thought about it, it's like, what really do they have in terms of privacy? So what is?
I think they have the same concerns we have as people shopping and people using things, and they lose their credit card information, they lose their passport information, they lose all that same stuff that's been stored online, and I think they get. I think people there get worked up about that too. They don't like their passports being lost or their passwords, passports, whatever. I don't know what they have for social security number, but they have something.
Well, the only thing I gleaned explicitly is it did not include their passports. But they still have a social security number equivalent. You're right, and they also have dates of birth and other personal information that can be used for identity theft.
Yep.
So the good news is your passport number is not stolen. The bad news is, well, everything else.
Everything else is already gone. So yeah, my data's been exposed more times than Lindsay Lohan, but it was.
Oh.
Now there's a bar.
All right. The other story Lee had there that was about. Probably nation states, the Blackwater campaign hiding data, and I think we get more proficient all the time at hiding attacks and where they came from and being able to just generally disguise what's going on. And I think that is both good and bad. I like us being able to hide data, but I also don't like the idea that I can be attacked and I have absolutely no recourse, although I think that's kind of where we are. But I don't know.
I thought it was kind of cool because, here we are. We talk about all the stuff we're doing, but realizing that the folks building exploits are also trying to raise the bar on detection. I mean, yeah, it sucks you can't see them, but here it is, power hello replaces power stats, and it's much more stealthy. The bar is raising, so cool. That means our suspicions are verified that, yeah, it's not static. And yeah, what are you going to do as a defender here? Do we all go to a foreign country and set up shop, or what?
Why not? It seems easy enough to do.
There's a beach with a flowered umbrella drink in it waiting for us, right?
Of course. And of course, the cloud means it's even easier because we can just push everything up there and just run it from whatever node we see fit. And if we do that, then why not? We can run everything from a cloud node anywhere we want and make it look like anything we want. And I don't know what anybody's going to do about it. So I guess we'll have to secure our data better.
So I got a question for everybody. I was talking to somebody today and they said, I don't have anything in the cloud. My reaction, I did not say out loud, but I was thinking, what do you guys think of a comment like that?
How's that possible?
It's incredibly naive.
Yeah.
It's like, do you use the internet?
I think what he meant is I don't explicitly put things in the cloud, but I think implicitly he's got all kinds of shit in the cloud.
Yeah, I think they have all kinds of shit in the cloud.
Do you have an email address?
Well, I mean, come on, ADP is cloud-based.
everything's got pieces starting to come out of the cloud. I mean, even if it's just an API for a piece of software, it may actually be pulling out of the cloud. Now, I don't know how you avoid having components in the cloud unless you're just like somehow off the grid. And if you're running a business, I don't see how you do that.
Are we still defining the cloud as someone else's computer?
Yeah.
So then, if it's not on your computer,
yeah,
it's on someone else's computer.
You got to
file. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, so the definition of the cloud is just somebody else's data center. That's
right.
I mean, ultimately, running your own data center is dead. It's done. It's finished.
It is dead.
So the cloud, what is it? Distributed data centers. Congratulations. Okay. So do you have data in the cloud? Fuck yeah, you do. Yep. Of course you have data in the cloud.
Yep.
I mean,
if you don't, somebody else does.
I guess one of my comments to I had a comment to a CEO the other day who was asking a very similar question to Lee's about, like, do I have anything in the cloud, and am I going to, and what's going to happen to me when I do? And I was like, well, I sort of see this horizon where the cloud just becomes this homogenous sort of thing.
It's like a fog.
And yeah, but at the same time, it becomes a little safer because of that, because you're already sharing everything. Mm-hmm. So as it becomes very homogenous, it won't be that one source of contact. So you'll have to do better. I mean, you won't have any choice. You'll just be taken out. Evolution. Everybody will be evolved right out of existence that doesn't have good hygiene.
Darwinism.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, if the cloud is all-consuming, then Darwinism kicks in, and companies that can't deal with it or refuse to deal with it will just be literally wiped out. They'll be...
Hey, look, the bottom line is the cloud's economic win is all about data center consolidation. They've got consolidation nailed, right? Right. And so, yeah, is there an economic bang for the buck? I mean, it's inevitable. I don't care who you are. If you're running a data center, your shelf life is limited.
Yeah.
You're done.
There's absolutely no economic side. I mean, if you just talk about the economics of it, it's insane. Yep. I was looking at it for this company because they were running a data center. They had their own. They're trying to secure it, manage it, maintain it, replace it, depreciate it, all those things that they got to do. And I was like, guys, no way. Because he was like, well, you think this cloud stuff would be cheaper? And I'm like, yeah. Yes. And I mean, and I went and looked at the operation and went, oh my God. And it was another old Lou problem. It's like, old Lou built all this stuff back in the late part of the 1990s, and it works great, and we're going to leave it that way for as long as possible. And I'm like, But they're,
I think there are folks that don't understand the real cost picture. I mean, I remember working with a group, let's say in the 2002 to 2004 frame, because my brain doesn't remember. And they took an existing data center. They've had to fix up the facility. They spent $5 million on that. Then they spent $5 million on the IT infrastructure for the data center. In other words, things like UPS capability, power routing, and the like, raised floor fix-ups. And then they started buying racks. So you're $10 million in before you got the racks in the data center. And now contrast that against putting it in the cloud. Yeah, the cloud's you're charging by volume and by storage, but I'm already 10 million in the hole before I've started. I think I can pay for a lot of cloud volume with that.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely not as cheap as people think it is. So it's pitched to you marketing-wise as it's going to be this huge savings. And I'm like, not so totally convinced of that. But you are offloading risk in some ways. I mean, there's other risks, but you're offloading. If you don't have any security on site, if you're trying to secure your own hardware, I mean, and you don't have anybody doing that, then you don't have any security. This same person was asking me, like, well, how am I'm going to be worried about it? I'm like, well, think about the liability. I mean, what happens to Amazon if they get a massive compromise? They get sued blue. Yeah. Whereas they don't have anything. So old Lou's down there trying to, crank up the coal-fired computer, and that I just don't buy it. I mean, I'm a fan. I think that it will resolve itself. I think there are a lot of security issues. There are a lot of security issues on site. So it's just a different set of issues. But I don't know. But I mean,
I actually support the consolidation. I think the consolidation resources makes sense. I think virtualization, both at the OS layer and now up at the application layer, has enabled this transition, and the massive improvement in network technologies has also enabled this transition. And so it's a natural evolution. And I think it's I hate it for people that have been working their whole lives in operational roles that are going to be put out of a job. But honestly, move on, move up. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just the way the industry goes, right?
It is. It always has gone that way from day one. And I mean, like that Salesforce story Lee put on there too. I mean, Salesforce has got massive problems. They're down. They're not supporting their stuff. And I mean, if you do an awesome job on site, then fine. But I mean, I just don't think most people do. I mean, maybe big organizations do, but I don't ever get to talk to them. I talk to small and middle-sized organizations, and they do a terrible job of this stuff. And I think for them, that whole side of it is just so much more effective than what they're doing now.
When I was
It's
looking at the Salesforce,
kind of
I was
out of
trying to
sight.
figure out what happened because it basically everybody got all permissions. I thought, well, did they screw up the IDM system or what? And then they said somebody ran a script, and it's like, oh crap, they screwed up file and object permissions. How the hell do you restore from that in a cloud scenario where you got thousands of transactions a day? I mean, I remember rolling back relational databases, and you came right up to the point of failure, and you stopped, and hopefully didn't have too many transactions. But holy crap, Salesforce is huge.
Yeah.
How do you recover?
Well, I think it's a matter of industry focus, though, specialization. I mean, the guys that are running these big data centers for multiple different entities, they're focused on that job and that job alone.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to get a better result
I agree.
with that approach. Whereas if you've got companies with on-site resources, it's just not the case that they're going to have that level of focus unless they're really, really large. I know some of my customers that are really large. They're looking at the cloud as how would I say this? As an enhancement for some areas, but not all. But that is a minority of customers.
Yeah.
The majority of people are going to be like, "Yep, just take it."
Yep.
I'm just.
I
do
mean,
it.
unless
I was going to say that the same thing probably could have been said about wireless a few years ago, or bring your own device and doing the stuff on mobile devices. Gradually, I think more and more companies, right or wrong, they look at the perceived economic benefit, and they just continue to inch closer to that.
I completely agree. I think the other thing that's going to drive this is underwriting and insurance. I know I say that all the time, but I mean, I see more cyber policies being written, and these cyber people are starting to press hygiene. They're starting to push these issues. And if you've got your own data center and you manage it beautifully, and for like what Joff was saying, it's a lateral shift. So it's just a move from our data center to somebody else's data center. Maybe that's not there. But for most of these people who have very, very poor hygiene, very, very poor entities that they're trying to support, that shift is going to get pushed by underwriting. It's going to get pushed by insurance because they're going to say, we're just not going to underwrite you because you aren't supporting this stuff the way you need to support it. You need to put it over there where they're at least looking at it, and it's going to be an improvement.
Well, and I got to throw the PCI flag once more.
Oh, God.
There are many companies faced with compliance responsibilities, PCI being a significant one, that think, oh, well, if I just insure myself, I'm good. The underwriters think insurance companies and filing claims. If you're subject to any kind of regulatory compliance control, PCI being one of them, don't think that getting an insurance policy gets you out of following the rules. They're not going to pay off if they find that you weren't doing what you were supposed to be doing in terms of compliance.
Completely agree. Anybody got anything else? We're about to wrap this up.
Well,
Let's wrap it.
Oh, did you want to?
I just had
Lee?
two quick ones.
Okay.
One actually. I just like that there's new legislation that's saying you have to have probable cause to do border searches of electronics. I think that is cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
Is that not the embodiment of the Fourth Amendment anyway?
Yes.
Yep.
But I mean,
Yes,
some of the very, very first forensics cases.
We don't know, Jeff. We didn't have to take a citizenship test.
Some of the very first forensics cases I ever got involved in or talked to anybody about involved Customs and Border seizing people's laptops as they came into the country and demanding passwords from them. Nobody knew what the rules were on that, and they were saying, give it up or you can turn around and go back wherever you came from. And so I'm very glad to see legislation starting to go on. I've actually talked to several legislatures about the need for defining that and ensuring that is in compliance with the Constitution of the United States. Yeah. Anybody got anything else? Or are we going to start to take this out? Well, you know what?
Let's close this shit out.
You know what, Joff?
Let's close it.
Joff, you brought me into this world. I'm going to let you take me out. How about that?
All right, I'll do that. Okay, everybody, thank you for watching Security Weekly this evening, and I will say over and out.